Welcome to my channel Starlight Sci-Fi Stories. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. The distress signal arrived in the quietest hour of the orbital station. Most of the galaxy was asleep. Deep space around Orion Gate Station shimmered with silent stars, cargo ships drifting slowly through docking corridors like metal whales in a cosmic ocean. Inside the command deck, Captain Elias Ward was drinking terrible station coffee and watching the stars. He liked the quiet hours. Fewer arguments, fewer diplomatic incidents, and far fewer aliens explaining why humans were dangerously primitive. The Galactic Alliance had accepted humanity only 6 years ago. Not because humans were powerful, not because humans were advanced, but because humans were persistent. Some species called that admirable. Most called it annoying. Elias leaned back in his chair when the alarm chimed. Not a loud alarm. A soft, careful sound. The kind that meant something was wrong, but the computer wasn't sure how wrong yet. He sighed. "Computer," he said calmly, "please tell me that's not another diplomatic complaint." The station AI answered immediately. "Negative, Captain Ward. Incoming priority distress signal from Alliance exploration fleet." Elias frowned. Exploration fleets rarely sent distress signals. Those ships were built to survive almost anything. "Display the message." The main screen flickered to life. A shaky transmission appeared. The image showed a damaged bridge, lights flickering, smoke drifting across the room. An alien officer stood in the center. Tall, gray-skinned, 4 glowing eyes. Commander Veles of the Alliance fleet. His voice trembled. "Any station receiving this signal, respond immediately." Elias sat up straight. Veles never sounded afraid. Now he sounded terrified. Veles continued speaking. "We have encountered an unknown fleet emerging from dark space beyond the Perseus expanse." Behind him, the damaged bridge shook as something struck the ship. Veles grabbed the console. "These vessels are enormous." The video shifted. For half a second, the camera captured something outside the viewport. A shape in the darkness. It was not a ship. It was a moving city. Black, spiked, surrounded by glowing energy fields. Veles spoke again. "They call themselves the Sovereign Ascendancy." The name echoed through the silent command deck. "They claim the galaxy was once theirs, and that all current civilizations are trespassers." Another impact rattled the ship. The lights dimmed. Veles leaned closer to the camera. "They have already destroyed 3 fleet carriers. Their weapons bypass shields. Their ships regenerate damage." Elias felt a cold weight settle in his chest. That was impossible. Nothing ignored shields. Veles finished the message. "If anyone receives this transmission, warn the Alliance." The screen filled with static. Then darkness. The signal ended. The command deck was silent. Finally, the station AI spoke. "Captain Ward, long-range sensors detect multiple warp signatures entering Alliance space." Elias looked at the tactical display. New signals were appearing. Hundreds, then thousands. Every one of them enormous. He whispered one word. "Oh." Moments later, the Emergency Council convened. Representatives from 27 species appeared as holograms around the circular chamber. Some looked confused. Some looked angry. All of them looked nervous. Elias replayed Veles's message. When it finished, the chamber exploded with voices. "This must be exaggeration. No fleet could destroy 3 carriers. We should attempt communication." They attacked first. One of the larger holograms leaned forward. Admiral Threx of the Alliance military, a towering reptilian warlord whose species had conquered half their sector before joining the Alliance. Threx spoke with cold certainty. If the report is accurate, the enemy fleet will reach Alliance territory in 8 days. A murmur rippled through the chamber. 8 days was nothing. Not for galactic war. Another voice spoke. A slender, blue-skinned diplomat. Surely our fleets can repel them. Threx did not look optimistic. Our fleets rely on shield technology. The enemy weapons bypass shields entirely. Silence filled the room. Then someone else asked the question no one wanted to say aloud. Then how do we stop them? Threx slowly turned toward Elias. The human captain blinked. Why are you looking at me? Threx's deep voice echoed across the chamber. Because humans are the only species in the Alliance that still designs weapons without shield dependence. Several diplomats frowned. One whispered, primitive tactics. Another added, brute force engineering. Elias rubbed his forehead. We call it redundancy. Threx continued. Your species also demonstrates extreme adaptability in combat environments. Elias sighed. That's a polite way of saying we improvise when everything breaks. The reptilian admiral nodded. Exactly. A nervous alien raised a tentacle. You cannot be suggesting we rely on humans. Elias raised his hand. Hey. Threx ignored the interruption. If the enemy bypasses shields, then traditional fleets will fail. He looked directly at Elias. But humans fight wars differently. The room grew quiet again. The blue diplomat spoke carefully. What exactly are you proposing? Threx's answer was simple. We give humanity command of the defense. Several council members protested immediately. Impossible. They are newcomers. They barely possess interstellar warships. Elias leaned back in his chair. I'm still in the room, you know. The arguments continued. Until the station AI interrupted. Alert, enemy fleet has entered Alliance border systems. The display appeared in the center of the chamber. A star system. Burning. Planetary defense stations exploding like sparks. The enemy ships moved slowly through the wreckage. Massive. Unstoppable. Watching it felt like watching a storm swallow a city. One council member whispered in horror. That is only a scouting fleet. Another asked the worst question possible. How many more are coming? The AI answered calmly. Estimated total invasion force, 40,000 capital vessels. The chamber fell silent. 40,000. No civilization in the Alliance had ever assembled a fleet that large. Threx spoke quietly. The war has already begun. He looked back at Elias. Human captain. Elias sighed. Yes. Can your species stop them? Elias looked at the burning star system on the screen. Then he finished his coffee. Well, he said slowly. That depends. The council leaned closer. Elias shrugged. Are we allowed to fight like humans? The War Council stared at Elias. No one spoke for several seconds. Finally, the blue diplomat broke the silence. What exactly does that mean? Elias stood and walked to the central display. The burning star system rotated slowly in the hologram. Enemy ships drifting through wreckage like silent predators. He folded his arms. Well, Elias said, most Alliance fleets fight wars with shields, long-range lasers, and formation tactics. Several council members nodded. That was the civilized way to fight. Elias continued. Humans do things a little differently. Admiral Threx tilted his massive head. Explain. Elias tapped the display. The enemy ships appeared in close detail. Angular armor. Strange energy patterns crawling across the hull. Your fleets depend on shields, Elias said. The enemy figured out how to ignore shields. He paused. But human ships were built assuming shields would fail. A murmur rippled across the chamber. One council member looked confused. Why would anyone design ships assuming their defenses will fail? Elias smiled faintly. Because they usually do. He began listing things calmly. Human ships have layered armor, redundant engines, manual targeting systems, and kinetic weapons. The blue diplomat frowned. Kinetic weapons are obsolete. Elias shook his head. Only if you rely on shields. He tapped the display again. A simulation appeared. A simple metal projectile. Accelerated to extreme velocity. When it struck the alien hull in the simulation, the enemy ship exploded. The council stared. One alien whispered, "Your weapons ignore shields because they don't use energy." Elias nodded. "Physics works on everyone." Admiral Threx leaned forward. "And your fleet?" Elias scratched his chin. "Well," he hesitated. "We technically only have 120 warships." The council erupted again. "That is nothing. The enemy has 40,000. This is hopeless." Elias raised a hand. "You're forgetting something." Everyone looked at him. "Humans cheat." The room fell silent. Threx asked calmly, "How?" Elias grinned. "Give us command of every asteroid belt in Alliance territory." The diplomats blinked. "Asteroids?" "Yes. And every cargo hauler." "That is not a military resource." "And every mining laser." Now the council looked very confused. Elias pointed to the map of Alliance space. A fleet moves through predictable routes. He marked several star systems, especially one this large. Then he highlighted narrow gravitational corridors. These are the only safe paths for ships that size. Admiral Threx's eyes widened. "You intend to trap them?" Elias nodded. "Exactly." The blue diplomat asked carefully. "With asteroids?" Elias smiled again. "With very fast asteroids." 3 days later, the first battle began. The Sovereign Ascendancy fleet entered the Kestrel corridor. It was a narrow region between two massive star clusters. Perfectly safe. Perfectly predictable. Which made it perfect for a trap. Deep inside the asteroid belt, human engineers worked non-stop. Cargo ships had become weapon platforms. Mining lasers had become targeting systems. Thousands of asteroids had been fitted with engines. Not big engines. Just enough. Captain Elias Ward watched from the bridge of the human cruiser Resolute. Admiral Threx stood beside him. The reptilian commander looked skeptical. "Your plan relies on rocks." Elias nodded. "Very big rocks." The sensor officer spoke. Enemy fleet entering the corridor. The display filled with dark shapes. Hundreds of massive alien vessels moving in formation. More followed behind. And more. It looked like a moving wall. Threx muttered quietly. "There are too many." Elias raised a hand. "Wait for it." The first alien ships reached the center of the asteroid belt. Exactly where Elias wanted them. He nodded to the tactical officer. "Start the avalanche." Thousands of engines ignited at once. Across the asteroid field, enormous rocks began accelerating. Slowly at first. Then faster. Then dangerously fast. The alien fleet detected the movement. Energy beams fired. Asteroids shattered. But there were too many. Thousands became hundreds. Hundreds became dozens. And dozens was enough. The first asteroid struck an enemy vessel. The impact released more energy than a nuclear explosion. The alien ship tore apart instantly. More asteroids followed. Ships exploded across the corridor. Even the massive capital vessels could not survive that kind of impact. Admiral Threx stared in disbelief. They cannot stop them. Elias folded his arms. Momentum is a cruel weapon. The corridor became chaos. Alien ships collided with debris. Asteroids punched through hulls. Explosions lit the darkness. But the Sovereign Ascendancy was not weak. Their ships adapted quickly. Point defense systems activated. Energy fields redirected some of the impacts. Soon the surviving fleet pushed forward. Still powerful. Still dangerous. Threx turned to Elias. They are breaking through. Elias nodded. I expected that. He tapped another control. Phase 2. Suddenly, hundreds of small human ships emerged from behind the asteroid debris. Tiny compared to the alien vessels. Vast. Aggressive. The human fleet opened fire. Railguns thundered. Missiles streaked through space. Explosions rippled across alien hulls. Threx watched the battle unfold. This is madness. Elias shrugged. Welcome to human warfare. But the war was far from over. Hours later, the enemy fleet pushed through the corridor. Damaged, but still enormous. Admiral Threx looked grim. You destroyed hundreds of ships. Elias nodded. But thousands remain. The reptilian commander studied him carefully. Do you have another plan? Elias looked at the star map. At the advancing armada. At the worlds behind them. Then he smiled. Of course. Threx narrowed his eyes. What is it? Elias answered calmly. Now we show them the one thing humans do better than anyone. The alien admiral waited. Elias leaned back in his chair, refusing to lose. The enemy fleet kept advancing. Even after the destruction in the Kestrel corridor, thousands of massive Sovereign Ascendancy ships continued pushing deeper into Alliance territory. They moved slowly, methodically, like a glacier made of warships. Every star system they passed through burned. Defense stations were crushed. Colonies evacuated in panic. Across the galaxy, fear spread faster than the invasion itself. For the first time in recorded history, the Galactic Alliance believed it might actually fall. Inside the command bridge of the human cruiser Resolute, Captain Elias Ward studied the tactical display. Thousands of enemy ships filled the map. Behind him, Admiral Threx watched quietly. You cannot stop them all, the reptilian commander said. Elias didn't look worried. I know. Threx frowned. Then what is your strategy? Elias tapped the screen. The star map zoomed out. Far beyond Alliance territory. Beyond the region anyone normally traveled. Into the empty dark between spiral arms. There was only one thing out there. A star. Old. Unstable. And very angry. Threx stared at the display. That star is collapsing. Elias nodded. Exactly. The reptilian admiral slowly realized the plan. You want them to follow you there. Elias gave a small smile. Humans have a long tradition of dragging bigger enemies into terrible places. 2 days later, the trap was set. The Resolute and the entire human fleet jumped into the empty system. Only 30 human ships remained. Most had been lost, slowing the invasion. But the survivors were fast and loud. They began attacking the front line of the Sovereign Ascendancy fleet. Railgun strikes, missile volleys, hit-and-run tactics. Just enough damage to irritate the enemy. Not enough to stop them. Exactly as Elias intended. The alien armada changed course. Thousands of ships followed the humans into the dead star system. Admiral Threx watched the sensors carefully. They are pursuing. Elias nodded. Good. The star in the center of the system flickered violently. Solar flares erupted across its surface. Radiation storms filled space. Threx spoke carefully. You cannot survive here long. Elias leaned back. We don't need to. The alien admiral looked at him. Explain. Elias tapped one last control. Across the system, hidden devices activated. Massive engines. Gravity amplifiers. Machines built from dozens of converted mining stations. All aimed at the dying star. Threx's eyes widened. You're accelerating the collapse. Elias nodded calmly. Supernova in approximately 8 minutes. The reptilian commander stared at him. 8 minutes. Elias checked the tactical display. The enemy fleet had entered the inner system. Thousands of ships. Too close to escape quickly. Perfect. He smiled. That should be enough time. Inside the command deck, alarms began ringing. Radiation levels rising. Solar storms increasing. The star was beginning to tear itself apart. Admiral Threx spoke urgently. You must leave now. Elias shook his head. Not yet. The alien fleet realized the danger. Some ships began trying to retreat. But thousands were still moving inward. Trying to destroy the human fleet. Trying to claim victory. Threx looked at Elias in disbelief. You are sacrificing your fleet. Elias finally stood up. No, he said quietly. We're sacrificing theirs. The timer on the display reached 2 minutes. The star began collapsing. Space twisted around it. Gravity surged. The Sovereign Ascendancy ships struggled to escape the growing pull. Too many ships. Too little time. Elias turned to the helm officer. Jump coordinates ready. Yes, Captain. On my mark. Outside the viewport, the dying star glowed brighter than anything in the galaxy. Admiral Threx spoke one last time. You humans are insane. Elias smiled. Probably. The countdown reached 10 seconds. Enemy ships filled the system. Thousands trapped in the gravity well. 5 seconds. 4. 3. Jump. The human fleet vanished in flashes of light. 1 second later, the star exploded. A supernova brighter than 1,000 suns consumed the entire system. The Sovereign Ascendancy fleet disappeared in a wave of fire and radiation. 40,000 warships. Gone in a single moment. Hours later, the surviving human fleet reappeared near Orion Gate Station. Only 22 ships remained. Most were damaged. Some barely functioning. But they were alive. And the invasion fleet was gone. Across the galaxy, Alliance sensors confirmed the impossible. The enemy armada had been completely destroyed. Inside the council chamber, representatives from every species watched the battle recording in stunned silence. Admiral Threx stood beside Captain Elias Ward. The blue diplomat finally spoke. You destroyed them. Elias rubbed the back of his neck. Well, technically, the star did most of the work. Another council member whispered. You turned a dying star into a weapon. Elias shrugged. Waste not, want not. The chamber slowly filled with quiet laughter. Not mocking laughter. Relieved laughter. For the first time since the war began, the galaxy could breathe again. Admiral Threx placed a massive clawed hand on Elia's shoulder. Your species saved the Alliance. Elias looked out the station window. At the endless stars. We just refused to lose. The reptilian admiral nodded slowly. I believe the galaxy underestimated humanity. Elias smiled. Yeah, people do that. Outside the station, human ships drifted quietly among the stars. Small, damaged, but unbreakable. Because humans had never been the strongest species in the galaxy. They had never been the most advanced. But humans possessed something far more dangerous. When the universe told them something was impossible, humans simply tried harder. And sometimes, that was enough to save the galaxy. The end.